Welcome to this edition of Cibola Treasures. I'm Barbara Wesley, your host. Our guest with this edition is Paul Pena, and he's going to bring us up to date with all of the things that are happening in the city, especially street construction and our wastewater treatment plant, all of those things that are going to impact us. And then Ed Smith has written a book. He's a retired lieutenant colonel, and he's written a book titled Our Forgotten Heroes. Fascinating read. And then Anna Larson is with an equestrian group, and they are doing some fascinating things around in the area, including in the Zuni Mountains. So stay tuned.
El Cafecito is an icon on historic Route 66 in Grant, serving your friends, family, and visitors for 30 years. The aroma of their famous chili welcomes you as you enter. Their friendly, efficient staff greets you. What's your favorite, red or green? El Cafecito prepares your favorite chili fresh every day. A visit to the spotless kitchen reveals where the award-winning chili is made. The efficient staff are preparing El Cafecito's famous meals you can count on, the best service every day. It's always time to go to El Cafecito. If you enjoy breakfast, you'll love breakfast at El Cafecito. Try one of the top 10 rated burritos in the state of New Mexico. Or maybe you're in the mood for eggs, bacon, and hash browns with green chili. There are so many items on the menu, even French toast. Ready for lunch? Hamburgers with French fries is a great choice. Make dining out for dinner special. Try the steak prepared just the way you like it. It's a meal you will tell your friends about. Sopapillas are good any time of the day. And that's not all. El Cafecito has just the right venue for your receptions, banquets, special occasions, and business meetings. Utilize the state-of-the-art electronics for the perfect professional presentation. Late for work or need a meal quickly? Call 285-6229. The drive-up window will have your orders in a jiffy. El Cafecito is famous for the best New Mexican food and their friendly, fast service. Located at 820 East Santa Fe Avenue.
Welcome to this segment of Cibola Treasures. In our studio today is Paul Pena. And Paul, you are the director of projects. I mean, all kinds of projects.
Yeah, special projects in the city of Grant. So yeah, I'm the one that all these projects come through my office, primarily the projects that are being funded through state and federal grants or loans are the big projects we have, but also some of the smaller projects to a lesser extent come through my office as well.
Okay, that's a big job.
Yeah. There is a lot. We have a lot going on right now. I'm fortunate. I have a very good assistant that helps on and takes on a big load as well.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, what is the status of 2nd Street?
2nd Street is actually two projects that were being built simultaneously. The first one was the bridge project over the Rio San Jose. We started that one first, and trying to time that one so that the contractor who is doing the roadway would start and they wouldn't be interfering with each other. And it's worked out pretty well except for the fact that the bridge project ended up taking 60 days longer than was scheduled. The project was scheduled to end at the end of August, and it didn't. And there were 12 days added onto the project because of one of them was rain issues, a broken water line, a couple of issues like that added 12 days to the project. So the project was supposed to end September 12th. It didn't end until November 12th. And so right now we're closing out that project. The other project, the roadway project, is about 50% complete at this time. So we'll probably be looking at sometime in mid or late January when that one will be complete. Now, with in the heart of the winter where we're at now, then it's going to be yet to be seen if we're going to be able to do any paving when it comes time to do the paving. They are doing some paving, supposed to be doing some paving either today or tomorrow. They're trying to do a little bit of paving up at the top side of 2nd Street over between Sargent and Stevens, putting down a first layer of pavement. They'd like to get, as they go along and do this project, they'd like to put down a first layer of pavement to help protect the project.
Now, where is Sargent?
Sargent is actually a street, if you're going up 2nd Street, right when you get to the crest of the hill, on top of the hill, there's a street that goes to the right, and that's Sargent
A
Street.
little tiny street that we never even noticed.
Right. Well, that's that part of Sargent Street, and then it's actually part of the Sargent Street that's down below,
on the east side of town.
on
And
the
that's
east
why I was
side.
saying I knew about that one.
Yeah,
And
there was a disconnect between it where the shopping center is. There was a disconnect between it right there.
Okay.
So then the little portion of it up there.
Okay. And then the third phase of 2nd Street. When are we?
The next phase, actually, the roadway that's being done now is actually the 3rd phase of 2nd Street.
Oh, okay.
That's the 3rd phase. There is going to be a 4th and probably a 5th phase. Right now we have a little over $500,000, $586,000 in municipal arterial program funding from the state that has been committed to 2nd Street, to the next phase of 2nd Street. The design of that will begin early next year, and we will put some additional funding that we're seeking right now, additional funding, and begin construction. I don't think that one will begin construction this next year. It could potentially start some construction maybe late in the year, but it's yet to be seen. That one is going to be a little bit more sensitive because now we're involved. We're going to be right in front of the schools. And being right in front of the schools, there's some other logistics there that we have to take into consideration, getting students and faculty and parents and buses and everything through there. So there'll be a little more. So I'm not sure if it'll go under design, but I'm not sure if it'll go under construction next year. We might want to time that construction where it happens in the summertime where we don't have that traffic in there. So it may be 2018 before that one gets done, but it will go under design.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So.
Well, it's juggling, right?
Right. It is. There's a lot more to these projects than just tearing up the roads, and one of the things, and we appreciate the citizens of Grants and the patience they've had with us closing 2nd Street because we know it's an inconvenience. That's a very convenient route to get through Grants, but it's going to be a very nice roadway, and it really helps us. It really helps us in the cost of the project. It keeps the cost of the project down. If we can close the roadway and allow the contractor to just work on it, he can get it done so much faster. It reduces our costs, and that's good for everybody.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. And then the Legacy Trail. We've talked about this before, and what is going to be the access across 2nd and 1st Street on that Legacy Trail?
The Legacy Trail will cross over both of those roadways at street level. And there will be on 1st Street, there will be a lighted crossing sign. So any pedestrians that come to 1st Street on the Legacy Trail will have a push button that will start a flashing, what they call a flashing beacon walk light that will stop traffic.
Okay.
And we won't have that on Second Street. I think on Second Street, I believe we just have some warning signs. But Second Street's a little bit different because it's only 2-lane, and we have a stop sign very close to where the trail crosses. So it's not the same as First Street, where First Street is 3 lanes, and traffic is moving at full speed at that
Oh,
point.
it moves faster than full speed.
And faster at times.
Right,
Yes.
right. And even on Second Street, we see
Mm-hmm.
youngsters, well, maybe even adults, drag racing on these 2 streets.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been a concern to me because the other day I happened to pull onto First Street and it was clear all behind me. I mean, on First Street. And here comes this motorcycle probably doing 80 miles an hour. I mean, and he didn't even stop at the next stop line. He was all the way, before I could even change lanes to get into the middle lane, he was already down at Roosevelt. I mean, he was going like lightning. And I'm thinking, we need to really get our traffic slowed down on these 2 streets.
Well, we do, and we have, speed limit, we have stop signs, and for the most part, the vast majority, 90% of people, follow the traffic laws and drive the roadway within the speed limit, but it's that 10% that that's the ones that make you aware that things can be dangerous.
They can be.
Yeah.
And I think on High Street, there by the park, they put up a light there, the flashing lights, a pedestrian crossing, and perhaps we need some more of those here on First Street, especially if we're going to be using this area.
Yes, there will be a lighted street light actually that'll go over the roadway on
Oh,
First
okay.
Street. So
Okay.
it will go over the roadway. So motorists will know when there's a pedestrian that will be crossing there. So
Good. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Someone really came up with a good solution.
Yeah, it was a big concern for us when we were going through the design of the project and everybody involved with reviewing the plans of the project. It's always a concern is the safety for motorists, whether you're doing a roadway or in this case a trail, and pedestrians in crossing these roadways. And so part of what we're doing is required, and the other part is just additional safety that we feel is important.
Now, years ago, someone told me that if there was a crosswalk, a painted crosswalk, I understand, I was told it was a federal law and a state law and a local law, that vehicles have to stop for a pedestrian in a crosswalk, a
Right.
designated crosswalk.
Yes.
And of course, right here on First Street, we don't have, but I see these youngsters coming by to go to the skate park all the time. And even on Nimitz, where those youngsters are getting out of school and crossing Nimitz at Washington,
Right.
their traffic is not stopping to let them go by.
Yeah. We do need crosswalks. We don't have as many crosswalks as we need in our community, and there is a need for more crosswalks. Most crosswalks are usually incorporated with stop signs or stopping intersections. Rarely will you have a crosswalk that goes across a roadway where there isn't a stop sign.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's look at the wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah, the wastewater treatment plant is moving along. We just completed our advertisement for comments on the wastewater treatment plant. That actually ends today, is the last day for comments. The city and CH2M Hill, which is OMI, that is our contractor, submitted our comments to NMED, to the state, on the wastewater treatment plant. We're actually we're advertising for bids right now for construction, and we have a pre-bid meeting scheduled for the next week on the 22nd. We'll have a pre-bid meeting, and we will meet with contractors who are interested in building the wastewater treatment plant. and final bids are due to the city by January 19th, I believe, 15th or 19th.
Okay.
And then we will choose a contractor and begin construction this next year. It'll
Okay.
take about a year to construct, a little over a year to construct the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay. Well, we're going to have to take a quick break and come right back because we have some more things that we want to talk about, and this is the man that has all the answers. So stay tuned, don't go away, because we have some more interesting things that we need to share with you.
At that moment, it hit me. This is why I joined the Guard. I couldn't believe it. I just saved the life of somebody from my hometown. Be there for your community at NationalGuard.com.
Well, we were just discussing the wastewater treatment plant, and that's still going to be in the same location out by the golf course.
It will. It'll be built in the same location. It'll be a completely different type of wastewater treatment plant. This is called a mechanical plant. And rather than having earthen lagoons, which we have right now, there'll be cement tanks that the raw sewage will be treated in, and the process is a much better process than the lagoon system. We get a higher level of effluent water, a higher quality of effluent water that comes out of that system than we have right now.
Okay. And will that eliminate the lakes at the golf course?
It will. No, it won't eliminate the lakes at the golf course. The lakes at the golf course are needed to store water for irrigating the golf course, and it's actually, the golf course is actually part of the wastewater treatment plant. It's the portion that basically gets rid of the water that the wastewater treatment plant produces. So the water is fully sustained by effluent water. There is no potable water that is used to irrigate the golf course.
Okay.
So it's a land application is what they call it.
Someone said that was where the affluent and the effluent met.
Yeah. I won't argue that. Yeah.
Okay. But that's an old joke, right?
First time I've heard it, believe it or not.
But yes, I was wondering because that the lakes out there really add such beauty and enjoyment to those that are golfing, and even for those that sit on the balcony and have a meal and just relax there. It's such a beautiful spot.
It is. I've always since I still remember some of the city councilmen when they were going to build a new wastewater treatment plant, and they were planning on they had gotten funding. There was recreational funding available at the time, and which is really the reason they made a decision to go with the golf course, because they actually had state or federal funding that was available to build the golf course. And when I saw some of the plans of the golf course, I really was impressed that they were really doing it right. And they've done that, and I really think that is one of the flagships of Grants.
Well, I do too. We're very fortunate. In fact, people say Grants has so many things going for it. We have the visitor center here. That's the parks, and people say, I've heard people from Gallup that are jealous of it. That should have been in Gallup. Shouldn't have been in Grants. So we have that. And then we see golfers coming to Grants every week to golf here because their golf course is in such poor condition.
Right, we do. And we have not only, from surrounding area, we have a lot of golfers that come here, but we also have getting to have a regular group of people, some of these retirees that the snowbirds that go, north and south twice a year will stop in here and stay overnight and play a round of golf, and they've gotten to know the golf course.
Yep.
And so it has attracted a lot. In the summertime, we get a lot of play from Albuquerque because their golf courses fill up, and they say they can drive to Grants, play a round of golf here, and go back home in about the same amount of time they can play a round in Albuquerque.
And then have such a beautiful place to do it in.
Yeah, they enjoy being able to get around the golf course, yeah.
Right, they do. But we're fortunate to have that. I know that there's all, in a small town, we gossip. And most of the time, the gossip is not correct. And so,
Probably 90% of the time, yeah.
and so I've always said that the golf course is a benefit to Grants because it does attract tourism. It attracts others that are in the area. And then I hear the other side that have condemned the golf course. And I'm thinking, that's such a benefit to a small community to have this golf course that we have. We should be very thankful as a community.
It does. It adds a quality of life that a lot of communities don't have. And that's really what's important for the citizens of Grants. I think sometimes we spend a lot of our time figuring out ways how to attract people into our community. And I think sometimes we forget that we need to improve quality of life for the residents that are here.
That's right.
And if we can do that, and the people living here enjoy living here, then people they know, friends and family they know, visitors to our community will see that.
That's right.
And that will attract them to our community and make it a better place.
That's right. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so we've got the wastewater treatment plant out of the way. The next thing is the George Hanisch Bridge.
The George Hanisch Bridge is under design right now. We did receive $350,000 grant from the state, a capital outlay grant from the state. The design, will be doing a 60% review of the design in January. And so that one will be scheduled to be under construction next summer. And that one will be built probably 60 to 75 days. That road will be closed during construction, and a detour will be going around there. But when it's completed, it'll be a much nicer facility than what we had there.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
good. And then we've got the Lifelong Learning Center or the library.
Right. That one is right now, I received today the final plans for approval. So the city manager will be reviewing those plans, and I haven't had a chance to take a look at them, but we met a couple of weeks ago on it, and so I imagine it's going to be a result of that meeting. And that one, demolition is actually scheduled to start on Monday.
The whole building's coming down?
No, interior.
The interior, okay.
Interior demolition.
Okay.
Exterior demolition will be part of the exterior will be torn down as well, because the front of that building is going to take on a completely different look.
Right.
And so part of it's going to be the exterior and the interior, and then also the parking area. The parking area is all going to be rebuilt and lighted, and
Right.
and it's gonna be a completely different look when that building is complete. It's not going to be the eyesore it is now. It's going to be really a building that the people in Grants can be proud of.
Well, several years ago, I saw plans, and I don't know if those same plans are the ones that you've looked at now.
They are. There hasn't been anything changed or very little change as far as the exterior of it is. There's been a little bit of change on the inside of it, on some of the floor plan on the inside of it. There's been a little bit of change, and then there's been other ideas for additions to it. Right now, the library will incorporate about half of that building,
Okay.
with the other half of the building being part of it will be a coffee shop, a food, not a food court, but some type of food service will be in there, and also will be developed into a workforce training center on the other half.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Super.
Yes. There's some new things that Eileen with Economic Development is working with as far as helping to train people who want to do internet businesses.
Right.
And so they will be able to get started in that facility where they'll have access to broadband and be able to have an opportunity to start their home business in there. And then as it grows and things, then they can move on to having their own facility.
Okay.
Yeah.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, it is. It's really good.
You know, I have said for a long time that we're fortunate to have Eileen Yarbrough here.
We really are. Yeah.
This is my thought. I hope it doesn't happen too soon, but I could see her becoming the state economic development director. She has these skills and this vision, and she knows how to implement the vision. It's not just a thought, but she knows how to go after it and get it done.
Yes, and and one of the big things is she has just a love for that type of work, and she has a love for the city of Grants, the Cibola County, and our surrounding area, Village of Milan. All of this area is her home, and when you talk to her about these things, she has a real passion for it.
Right, she does, and she gets excited.
She does.
So we're fortunate to have the Lifelong Learning Center. I'm guessing that it's going to be, what, a year or two before it's finished?
I'm thinking probably a year. I don't think more than that.
Okay.
Yes, because the main structure is there. A lot of the inside, a lot of the infrastructure is in good shape. The building overall is in good shape. The floor is in good shape. The ceiling's in good shape on the building. There's a few leaks in the ceiling, but they're minor.
Okay.
And so we're fortunate that building is still in the condition that it's in.
Well, the blueprints or the drawing that I saw had landscaping that was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And so not only that parking lot with all those holes in it, that's going to be gone. And then there'll be places with lighting and trees and all these things in it.
There will, and there'll also be kind of a courtyard that's incorporated with it, where the windows in the front in the summertime when it's nice will be open, so it'll be kind of an open outdoor courtyard. In the wintertime, the glass doors will be closed, and it'll be kind of an indoor courtyard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, we're fortunate to have that property there and to be moving forward with it.
Mm-hmm. We are.
We are.
Yeah.
So what else is on the agenda that's just not imminent, but on the agenda?
Yeah, we have right now the second phase of First Street, which is from Harrison to Roosevelt. That design has been completed for about a year and a half, and we've been pursuing funding for it. So hopefully we'll get funding for construction of that this next year. The third phase of First Street, which is between Harrison and Washington, which is the middle part of First Street, the city has determined that they're going to go ahead with construction of the roadway and lighting on that section. We won't be doing any subsurface work because of the chlorinated plume that is currently being cleaned up there. So that one is in the wings as well. It's down the road a few years, but it is in the wings. We actually do have one funding source that the city council has already committed to that phase of First Street, and we'll be using that for design. So that one I expect it'll go under start design next year.
Okay.
So that's ready to go. We have some funding for the next phase of Second Street. $500,000, over $586,000 for that next phase of Second Street. So that's going to go under design next year, and we'll continue seeking funding for these projects and continue working on them for the foreseeable future. I'm afraid you're going to see a lot of closed roads, orange barrels, and construction going on, but it's sorely needed in the town, and it's going to make a big difference, especially where now all the people that come to the county to do business are now going to be going through our community to the other end of town. And so
That's
we
right.
really need to do a facelift on these areas and put our best foot forward.
Well, let me tell you something that my son had suggested. He just retired from the Oklahoma Air National Guard. And with all these vacant houses and these vacant businesses, he said, Grants needs to be attracting these retirees that come with all these skills, whether they come to retire because they're close enough to the hospital in Albuquerque, or if they want to bring those skills and start a business here. And so he thinks we should be pushing that aspect.
And there is that has always been on the plate for Grants for the last 20 years. It started with the idea of putting in the golf course. It's going along. The Legacy Trail is going to be another item that goes along with it. Our park systems. We have low-cost housing here, and even our property taxes are low compared to a lot of places. High compared to a lot of places as well.
Right.
But I think if we get some more of these houses filled and things, then that should help that problem.
Right. It
And
should.
things. And so these are some of the things. Grants has a hospital, so all of these things we're putting in go along with that, trying to attract that. I don't think Grants will ever be a large retirement community because basically most of your elderly would rather be someplace warm, but there is a percentage of elderly that like the mountains and like don't
Four
mind the cold.
Seasons,
Yeah,
right.
and like the
Yep.
Four Seasons. Uh-huh.
Right. Well, Paul, you always bring such good information to the community, and the hard work that you put into it is so appreciated. So thank you for joining us today, and thank you, our audience, for tuning in to Channel 10.
Riverside Auto Diesel is the place to go for everything mechanical. Bicycles, motorcycles, RVs, cars, and semis too. Car a little sluggish? Riverside Auto Diesel can fix you up with routine oil changes and a tune-up. Then your car or truck will have superb engine performance. Tires for every truck or car are available at Riverside Auto Diesel. You'll experience the difference with the right tire for your vehicle. Transmissions need routine service. Don't get caught in the middle of nowhere with a transmission failure. A cool car is a pleasure to drive when the weather is not. An air conditioner leak can be repaired and you're off to an enjoyable summer. When your car breaks down or you have an unfortunate accident, Riverside Auto Diesel has road service and towing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Friendly, knowledgeable, ASE certified mechanics. Riverside Auto Diesel is New Mexico state approved. For all of your mechanical and automotive needs, see Keith Ford at Riverside Auto Diesel, located at 1433 East Old Historic Route 66. Call 287-3543 or 290-7459.
Welcome to this segment of Cibola Treasures. In our studio today is Ed Smith. I guess we could say Edward Lee Smith, a lieutenant colonel retired, and he has written a book called Forgotten Heroes. And it's a fascinating book. I've had an opportunity to pull some information from it. I have not read it through and through, but I have read some excerpts from it. And let's start with Ed. Let's start with, where did you grow up?
I grew up in a little place called Northampton County in Rich Square, North Carolina, about 5 miles from the city limit. Grew up on my grandfather's and my grandmother's, on my mother's side, farm.
Okay, but you were born in the Philadelphia?
In Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, July the 3rd.
Okay, all right, almost a 4th of July baby.
That's what I call myself.
Okay, very good. So, tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up in and you said instead of sounding out each syllable of Carolina, you say it the way that they do down there. I noticed that you leave off some syllables. Say Carolina again.
North Carolina.
Well, okay, that's not the way you said it before. But anyway, what was it like growing up in North Carolina?
It was a very disciplined environment. You didn't question the parents for anything. Only when they asked you a question would you respond. You weren't allowed to express yourself at any point that you disagree with that or you disagree with that. Whatever they said, that was the way life was.
Well, they were the authority.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. And so what did you do how old were you when you moved to North Carolina?
I really don't know because it was 27, 20, 20. I don't even know the dates that my mother and my father separated. My grandmother that took my brother and I was on my mother's side. And the grandmother on my daddy's side was the one that brought us to North Carolina.
Okay.
And so the hecking between the two grandmothers wasn't comfortable. So my grandmother on my mother's side chose to take my brother and I and raise us on the farm.
Okay. Okay. So growing up on a farm is very different from growing up in the city.
Very much, very much.
You had chores to do?
Well, yeah, we had animals, cows, horses, mules, and chickens and pigs, and so we were at chores assigned to us to do every morning, and then in the evening you would work in the field in the day, and then in the morning you would go out and feed the animals and feed the animals before you take the horse and the mules and the farm in the field and start plowing.
Sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Easy life, right? I'm being facetious.
Yeah, but
It
you know
was
what?
hard.
You know what? I appreciate that today. Okay, because when I was growing up, I didn't know anything else but the farm. That's when and now there's all these different things you can get involved in life when you grow up as a child. They didn't have that when I was growing up.
Right. Right. But there were
Daycare
some
center.
but there were some important lessons you learned
Yeah.
there.
Mhm.
Now, you went into the military, and this is for
No, I didn't go in.
Oh, you were.
I was drafted.
Oh, he was drafted. Okay. Well, when you were drafted, you went into the Army?
The Army drafted my brother and I twin. We were together. We didn't want to be separated, and they made no effort to try to separate us. So we had back in Philadelphia during that time, and we had working. So they drafted us, and what we did was went to Fort Dix, New Jersey for basic training, which was only 27 miles from Philadelphia. After the basic training, then they troop trained. We left there and went to Fort Lewis, Washington, and from Fort Lewis, Washington, we went to Korea right on the front line, no hesitation whatsoever.
Okay, and this was Korea.
Mhm.
Okay. So, that was a difficult war. It was cold and miserable and snowy and nasty weather, and so your book identifies some of those experiences that you had there.
Well, most of the experience that I had was not a social experience. It was a combat experience. So we were every day and every night in combat, up on the hill or down the hill or back up on the hill again,
Right.
trying to run off the Chinese and the North Koreans. We weren't there long enough to take a rest and recuperation to Japan. So what happened, we were down that morning preparing to go back with our replacements to back on the hill again. And General Ridgway came down and said, Ed and Fred, front and center, and he said, you guys are going home, just like that.
Mm.
There was no warning in the future about that. And so they put us on the Jeep, and from the Jeep we went to an airplane. The engine was running, waiting for us, and off to Japan we went.
Okay. All right. So, what was your experience, and what year was that?
51.
51. Okay. All right. So, by this time, was Japan a place where you had R&R?
For the soldiers, yeah, but we didn't have R&R because they shipped us up before we could put the time in to take R&R.
Okay. All right. So, what was the reason for your writing this book? What did you want to convey in writing this book?
It's very difficult because first, my brother and I were very close until the war, and after the war, my brother indicated that maybe we should go our separate ways because it was too painful for us mentally when we was in the war, and we both in the same platoon, and all of these people died. So what we did was came back, and we both got married for the first time, and we started a family, and we were obligated for 5 years because we were drafted, and so that 5 year we had to attend meetings, I think once a month.
And was that National Guard or
No,
Reserves?
that was in the Army Reserve.
Okay.
So,
And so, where did your brother go after the war?
we both were there in Philadelphia. We were spending our time there. But what happened was I came back to active duty, and he went back to active duty. And amazing, they sent me back to Japan to the division that I had served in the same division. And my brother was sent to the same ordnance. He went to France, to the ordnance base down in Paris. Yeah. So we still were separated from each other. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, as I glanced through this book, you mention your family a lot. Okay. And who was the most influential person in your life as a youngster or a young man?
The gentleman in there, Ernest Silks,
Okay.
he was the World War I veteran, and he was the most influential. He took my brother and I like we were his sons. He didn't have a son. He had twin daughters, and one died at birth. So my brother and I was actually his support.
Okay. Okay. So, and how did he influence you? What was it that sticks out in your mind as to how he influenced you?
His influence as a World War I veteran influenced my brother and I, because what he did was to tell us the history of the world, how the history was designed, people in the history, different ethnicity in the world, and how they were going to come in one, And so that was where I began to learn what the world was about and people in the world. And that's what I want. I was in the Peace Corps, and so that's what I want to do, was make my connectivities around the world.
Okay, very good. So, after the war, what did you do? Did you stay? Did you seek another career, or did you continue to live a military life?
Well, the 23 years off and on was the life that I was living. To live another life, you're limited as an African American, and that's what they call it. You were limited because you could only have certain jobs in any environment, working environment, whether you were a PhD, a master's, or BS. You had to have, you couldn't go to the top of the ladder to be a CEO or a president. And my ambition was to work as high as I could go.
Okay. And what was that?
Become president of someone's company.
Okay.
So I started my own company in the 70s in Denver.
Okay, and what was that?
That was a software engineering company.
Okay. All right. And so, then you were in the National Guard.
Yeah.
And so tell us where you served in the National Guard.
Okay. The National Guard is a state organization by the governor of the state. And what happens here is whenever I went from place to place, I had a civilian job, but I never gave up the National Guard.
Okay.
So I always joined the National Guard, whether I was in Denver, whether I was in Virginia, where I was in, Washington or Oregon, New Jersey, where I never gave up the National Guard because it gave me support of what I had gone through in the military.
Okay.
In the Korean War.
Sure, sure. And most people that have endured those things don't talk about them.
Very true.
But it's talked about here.
In the book.
In the book. So if you want to obtain this book, you can go to www.iuniverse.com, or is that oneuniverse.com?
No, that's iUniverse
iUniverse.com. It's at Barnes and Nobles, and it's on Amazon.
on Amazon. Mhm.
And it's a well-written book. I mean, it's very clearly written. It captures the spirit of what he's wanting to convey, and there are word pictures here that really tells you what life was like for Ed. Ed, I want to thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, and I wish you tremendous success in the sale of this is your memoir, isn't
That's
it?
right.
It is your memoir. Tremendous success, and it looks as though this picture was taken in the South because I see some moss hanging from the trees, and so this must be in the Carolinas or in the South.
It would actually be deep south, like Louisiana or
Oh,
Florida.
okay. All right. But there's a plane in the
Mhm.
right
That's
there.
me flying the plane. I got my
Okay.
license.
Okay. Very good. Well, thank you for joining us, and wish you tremendous success
Thank you.
in your book.
Thank you.
And for your service to our country.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you for tuning in to this segment of Cibola Treasures.
We had been called up for the first time. Wildfires were getting close to homes. At that moment, I got my first taste of just how important the Guard is.
Be there for your community at NationalGuard.com.
Welcome to this segment of Cibola Treasures. In our studio today is Anna Larson, and Anna Larson has just been working on so many things with a very special group. And Anna, you do some other things in our community. So what is your title with the county?
With the county, I'm the GIS mapper. So I do all of the parcel data mapping and some of the other mapping in the county.
Okay. That's really important for emergency response and that sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, to be able to find and locate properties and that sort of stuff.
Right. But that's not your passion. I mean, you're good at that, but that's not your passion. Tell our audience what your passion is.
Well, it's horses and working with horses and enter the Zuni Mountain Chapter Backcountry Horseman Club that I've helped establish.
Okay. And what do they do? I mean, there's so many things that are going on with that group. So what are some of the things they do?
The Backcountry Horseman is mainly trails in public lands. So we help build, maintain, and evaluate trails on public lands for everybody's use, not just the horsemen, but hikers and bikers. Some of our trails are going to be multi-use, all non-motorized, which includes snowshoeing and cross-country skiing in the winter when available.
Okay. And so what are you doing in the Zuni Mountains?
The biggest thing we're working with in the Zuni Mountains is the Zuni Mountain Trail Project. It's a bi-county affair with the Forest Service. Eventually, once the trails are all completely built, you would be able to ride from the Quartz Hill area, which is off of the Zuni Mountain Road, or Zuni Canyon Road,
Right.
all the way over to McGaffey.
Right.
On designated trails outside of the existing forest roads.
Well, I have been on the road from Grants all the way to McGaffey several times, and just that is phenomenal. But to be able to hike, to be able to bike, to be able to do some horseback riding, to do some of those things, that would be a phenomenal experience for us. I also look at the economic impact that would make on the community, because when people come in and they're wanting to hike, if they're hikers, they have to have a place to stay. If they're hauling horses, sometimes they need a motel and they need a restaurant.
Right.
I look at those things and how this is going to impact us, because Gallup really got a head start on their project years ago. I mean, it's been 15 years, 20 years?
About that, yeah. McGaffey side already has 26 miles of trail built up. So they're already hosting events. They're hosting multiple mountain biking events throughout the year, 3 or 4
Right.
completely. And Cibola County doesn't have any yet. We've put in the funding requests to for the Quartz Hill area, which would be the first of our trails on the Cibola side. And once we have those trails available, we have signed marked trails anybody can use. Any visitor walking across or driving across the country can stop and go to these trails. Without the signed marked trails, a whole lot of people don't want to stop because they're afraid of getting lost.
That's right. Absolutely. But it's so beautiful up there. And you find so many treasures. I mean, it's an amazing, just the one on the road is
Right.
amazing. And to be able to get off the road and go into some of these other places, several years ago we did a project for the Gallup Chamber of Commerce, and we were up in the